There you go, Eddie Daltrey, no surprise. Stacey P. on KMMT, and you know this isn't just the #1 station for new music. I have lots of cool people that come in to talk to me about what they do, and I have Climber Clay here in the studio, and he recently climbed Mount Clyde, correct?
That's right.
Is this your first time on the radio?
It is.
How exciting for you. You're a radio virgin.
I love it.
Okay. All right. And Clay, you work up at the mountain, right?
Yes, I do.
You do the climbing stuff there?
Yep, I run the climbing and zip line program at the mountain right now.
You know what? I've never done the zip line up there.
It's a hoot. Unfortunately, it's only for kids, so we have to wait for a while. We're going to put a zip line in next year for adults.
You know, because adults like to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Some adults like to get a little crazy. However, climbing Mount Clyde is not something that I've ever thought I've ever wanted to do. So we're going to talk about, you know, when we talked a couple of days ago about what you did, and I asked you, I said, as a climber, you actually needed the things you shove in the ice and the carabiners. What are those things called?
Well, we got protection and carabiners and slings and ropes and all sorts of tools that we use.
So it's not like a hike up a trail. You go, up
not
here
at all.
And you walk down.
Not at all.
Okay. And Clyde is which, if you're looking at the minarets?
It's the tallest of the minarets that you see from the mountain, if you look out that way.
The tallest of the minarets.
Yeah.
All right. And I know a lot of people do climb the minarets and climb Clyde. Where do you start when you climb there?
Well, you hike in from Reds Meadows, or the post pile, actually. It's about a 7 or 8 mile hike in, and then you just start up by Lake Minaret.
You know, it seems like it's so much closer.
It looks very close. And from the mountain, I guess it's probably closer to 10 miles, I guess.
Wow, okay. Okay, so, and you end up at Minaret Lake.
Yep, Minaret Lake, camped there overnight, and then started the climb early the next morning.
How early?
We were on the climb by about 8 o'clock.
Okay, because I'm wondering, because when people do Mount Whitney in a day, they start at like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah, this is not quite that. I mean, the climbing itself took about 9 hours to get from once we started the climb to the summit.
But it shouldn't have, right?
Well, the climbing took 9 hours. It was the descent that should have taken about an hour and a half, maybe, and it ended up taking us about 6 hours.
Okay, so let's start. You get up there at 8 o'clock in the morning. You're starting to go up, and it took you actually from 8 and 9
hours? About 9 hours to get to the summit. By the time we got to the summit, it was a long day. This was probably the biggest, most aggressive climb that I've ever done. Got to the summit, kind of tired. It's been a long day. It's real windy. We want to get down. And the guidebooks that we've had, that we looked at, and the descriptions that we looked at, told us basically what to do on the descent. To descend north for a little bit and then make a left and wrap yourself around the mountain and back again. But when we got up there, we looked down to our right and we saw Lake Minaret, and that's where we were headed. Or actually, Lake Cecile. Lake Cecile. And that's where we were headed. Mm-hmm. And even though everything that we learned about the mountain was telling us to go left, we saw the lake to our right and decided, heck, we might as well walk straight to the lake.
Okay, so that was mistake number 1.
That was the mistake, really. That was the one that really predicated everything that came after that.
So you get up there. Do they have like a little book to sign?
They do have a book. There is a summit box on this mountain. Okay. I was in too much of a hurry to really deal with it, so I just kind of cruised right by it.
That's what you said on your blog. And what is it? How do somebody get to your blog if they want to read it, by the way?
It's at Blogspot. It's Clay's Year West at Blogspot, or /blogspot.com.
Yeah, okay. Because my mental blog is on Blogspot.
I have it. Yeah, I have it.
Blogspot.com, isn't it?
That's probably what it is. I have it bookmarked, so to be honest, I've never typed it in.
It's probably claysyearwest.blogspot.com, because mine is mymentalblog.blogspot.com.
That's right. That's probably
Every time I have a hot flash, I feel I have to write about it. Anyways, okay, so you get it because you did say here on the... any climber will tell you that getting to the top is only half the job. On long, committing climbs, more accidents happen on the descent. Exhaustion, hunger, lingering daylight, and an inclination to rush things all conspire to open a window that will rise up and sneak up on even the most cautious climber.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's very commonly known that, especially with longer alpine climbs, like when you're doing ice climbing, that kind of thing. But on any climb, if you've had a long day and you're down climbing, we had to down climb some fairly steep terrain that, had we been climbing it, we probably would have been roped up. Mm-hmm. So it's very steep. It's starting to get dark. We're a little dehydrated. We're hungry. You just have to be real careful to take your time, work slow, don't rush things. We had to do 4 unplanned rappels where we're descending the rope just because the terrain was too steep.
You guys are on top. I don't know anything about climbing, so explain to me what an unplanned rappel requires.
As we descended for a bit, the terrain gets too steep. It becomes a cliff instead of a rock scramble. We set up a rope. We attach a rope to something attached to the mountain. In this case, it was some gear that someone had left previously. And we toss the rope down, and then we just basically use our equipment to slide down the rope.
Clamping things?
It's a friction device.
Oh, okay.
This was a rappel device.
Clamping things. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
And then we, lower ourselves down the rope, and then retrieve the rope, pull the rope down, and then do it again.
How do you retrieve the rope if you're down there and the rope's...
It's actually, the rope is fed through the anchor, and both ends of the rope are lowered. So you pull on one end, and the other end comes up through It's a little complicated, but not...
Well, that was that was probably good luck that somebody had left something in the rocks.
That's right. And then 2 of the rappels, we had to leave our own gear, our own protection that we had. We left gear on the mountain in order to facilitate our descent.
It's still up there?
It's still up there. Aww. That happens every now and then. I mean, you leave some gear, but it's $5-10, something like that. It's not that big a deal.
So you did the 4 rappels.
We did 4 rappels. They were separated from each other. We had to cross a couple glaciers, so that was the part that really got us a little nervous.
Yeah, because aren't the crevasses?
There were that wasn't the issue so much as we didn't have any equipment for any sort of glacier travel. So we were
things on the boot.
Crampons, anything like that, ice axes, nothing like, because we were doing a rock climb. We had no reason to believe we were going to need that. So we reached one glacier and rappelled down the side of that, and then got down to a point where the terrain was able to be crossed without rappelling. But then we crossed at least 2 other small glaciers, and it was nervous. I mean, we were. Once you start sliding on a glacier, you don't stop till you get to the bottom. So,
which is rocks.
Yeah. So it had us nervous for quite a bit.
So once you got past the glaciers.
We got past the glaciers, we still had some descent to do, and by that point it was dark, and we had run out of water at that point, or just about run out of water, and we were still a couple of miles away from our camp. We had to wrap around the mountain further, cross over another...
How did you know where to go? It's dark. I mean, it's dark out there.
You have reference points, basically, and you're working from your memory. I mean, the features in the mountains are pretty big. So if you look that way, there's that mountain. It's not moving anywhere. So you can use that as your sort of compass point to work your way around the mountain. We had Lake Cecile on our left, so we knew we had to go around Lake Cecile. Funny little thing, as we got to Lake Cecile, I remembered the approach up to Lake Cecile one way in my head, and I was convinced that it was absolutely in that direction. And my partner, Bernardo, he more accurately remembered the real approach, and he convinced me that we should follow his way and not my way. And thankfully, he was right and I was wrong, and I was able to...
Did you say that to him?
I did. I was really convinced that we should go one way, and I backed off. I said, all right, let's follow your direction, and he got us right down to where we needed to be.
Okay, so did you stay over there one more night?
We did.
Okay.
Our original plan was to hike out, but at 11:30 or 12 at night, when you reach your camp, you're pretty much ready to just go to bed.
Yeah. So you were on the mountain for 15, 16 hours?
Yeah, something like that. It was a long day.
So what advice do you have for people who are thinking of climbing Mount Clyde? I guess the glacier's on the north-facing part.
Yeah, it's on the other side that you can't see from Mammoth Mountain.
Now, if you're on top of Mount Clyde, can you see what's on the west side of that?
Yes, you can see there's a lake. There's Amphitheater Lake, and then there's Iceberg Lake that you can see as well. Okay. And then there's a couple of small glaciers.
And that's Yosemite over there, right?
It is. I believe it's the Ansel Adams area.
Okay. So what what advice do you have for people who are doing this?
The mistake that we made, it was not entirely, it made sense to us at the time. I mean, the guidebook we copied the page out of the guidebook, and this is what the descent said. And as you're going down, you just make decisions as you go. And if you're standing there looking at the place you want to go, logic is going to tell you,
straight line.
Let's go that way.
Right.
I mean, why am I going to go all the way around to the left, all way out of my way, and down a slope that looks even more dangerous than what we were looking at? So logic told us that we were doing the right thing. if nobody had ever mentioned that descent in the guidebook, we should have thought to ourselves, you know what? If nobody's ever done it, if nobody's ever written about it, if we've never read anything about it, maybe it's not the way to go. Mm-hmm. So we really should have just paid attention to the guidebook and made our way down that way. Once we got into the descent, another thing that happens in the mountains is that once you get into a descent like this, someone would say after the fact, well, why didn't you just stop and go back up and go on the real?
I think I asked you that.
I think you did.
Yeah.
And what happens is as you get going, you just keep telling yourself, well, you know what? It's going to get better. It's going to get easier. We're through the hard part. Now it's obviously, this is definitely the way to go. And somehow it never does.
You know what? I said that to myself for my first marriage. Somehow it's going to get better. I know it's going to get easier, and years go by, and then you go, I'm done.
Hindsight and age does wonders, doesn't it?
Clay, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that. And this is, for all you climbers out there, listen to the guidebooks. Thankfully, Clay made it out there. It could have been gnarly had he slipped on one of the glaciers. You just have to be safe when you're climbing in the backcountry. We do love the Inyo and Mono search and rescue teams, but we don't want to have to use them if we don't have to. They're great. Do you know the search and rescue?
I have not met any of them.
They're great guys. They're great guys and gals. And
hopefully I won't meet them, actually.
Except maybe at a fundraiser.
There you go.
Okay, we'll be back with another fishing report here on KMMT in Howard coming up. Don't go away.
Let's go fishing!
This June Lake Fishing Report is brought to you by the Double Eagle Resort and Spa.